Elasticity is an important concept in economics which helps us understand how consumers and producers respond to various changes. So basically, elasticity is the proportion of quantity demanded or supplied that changes in response to a proportional change in stuff. So there are various type of elasticities and we'll touch through the common ones in this video. So let's begin with the definition of elasticity. So this is how we would define elasticity. It's how much the proportion of quantity demanded or supplied changes with respect to the proportion of change in a factor. Now the factors, the common one are the price and the income. So the most common type of the most basic type of this elasticity is the price elasticity of demand. As you can guess from the name, it's related to the price and it's related to the proportion of change in quantity demanded, not supplied in this case. The formula for this is in the numerator we have percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. This elasticity helps us understand how much the quantity demanded of an item will change if the price increases or decreases. So as a baseline, if this value is greater than 1, we call it elastic. So we call the good as having an elastic price elasticity of demand. This usually happens for luxury goods. And it's quite intuitive if you think about it. So if the price of luxury goods such as a designer bag increases, so suppose the price of a expensive it doesn't even have to be expensive, it just needs to be a luxury good. Suppose it's a sunglass. So if the price of a sunglass doubles, the demand of sunglass will decrease a lot. A lot less people will buy sunglasses if the price of sunglasses double. On the other hand, if the value of this elasticity is less than 1, we call it inelastic. So goods with a price elasticity of demand less than 1 has an inelastic price elasticity of demand. These are for necessities. So this can be rice, food products like that. It can be medicine or petrol, stuff that are necessary for you. So even if the price of medicine doubles, people will still buy almost as much medicine. So if the price of medicine doubles, a lot more people will still buy the medicine compared to sunglasses. So if the price of sunglass and medicine both double, there will be a bigger decrease in demand for the sunglasses. So that's more responsive. So for sunglasses, this quantity demanded will change more than it will do for medicine. This is the case over here. And there's a special case if the elasticity is exactly 1, it's called unit elastic. This is a special case and just happens when both the percentage change in quantity demanded and price remain the same. Now The price elasticity of demand, which is written PD in short, measures how much or how responsive consumers are to changes in price. Now this was the price elasticity of demand. Now we'll move to the price elasticity of supply. This is written PES as a short form. Now this measures how responsive producers are. So when we had price elasticity of demand, we measured how responsive the consumers are to changes in price. Now we do the same but for producers. We measure how responsive producers are to change in price. We have a similar baseline over here. So if the elasticity is less than 1, we call it inelastic. The type of goods are however different. So if the supply is inelastic, it means that it's hard for the suppliers to produce this good. So even if price increases, so suppose price of agricultural products double, the suppliers cannot instantly produce double the agricultural goods. They'll need some time to grow the crops. Similarly for housing, if the price of housing goes up, the construction or housing people cannot just build hundreds of new houses instantly. They need some time. So inelastic supply means that it's slow to produce that good. On the other hand, if the proportion is greater than 1, we call it having an elastic supply. So this is inelastic supply and this is elastic supply. These are for goods that are very fast to produce. So for example, it can be clothing or ice cream, soft drinks, stuff like that, which are manufactured on a large scale and you can easily double or triple the production. Now the third one we'll move on to is the income elasticity of demand. Well, before we move into that, the formula for the price elasticity of supply is almost the same. It's the percentage change in quantity supplied by the percentage change in price. So you can see the similarity between the price elasticity of demand and the price elasticity of supply. They have the same denominator. The numerator changes from percentage change in quantity demanded to percentage change in quantity supplied. They have similar baselines as well. So greater than 1 means elastic, less than 1 means inelastic. For demand, elastic demand just means the goods are luxury goods. You can live without it. Whereas if it's inelastic, the goods are usually necessities that you cannot live without. So even if the price increases, you are forced to buy it. So medicine, food, they fall into that category. For supply, inelastic supply just means that even if the price increases, the producers cannot sell for a higher price because they cannot produce a lot of new products when the price increases. They'll need some time to produce it. And elastic supply is just the opposite. Now we'll move on to income elasticity. The formula is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in income. In the previous two elasticities, we only needed the magnitude. So in both cases, the elasticity was greater than 0 by default. But in this case, we can have both positive and negative because in the previous examples, if the price increases, the quantity supplied will increase as well. And if the price decreases, the producers will supply less as well. In the other case, if the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. We know that for sure. And we only care about the magnitude of that change. But in case of income elasticity, we also need to check the magnitude and the direction of change. So if income increases, there are some goods that the consumers will demand more. So suppose luxury goods are an example. So if your income increases, you'll buy more luxury stuff. On the other hand, there are some stuff that the opposite happens to. So for some stuff, if your income increases, your demand for that decreases. Some examples of this are instant noodles. When you have a low income, you buy a lot of instant noodles because they are cheap. You can afford that, but you cannot afford a better meal. So you buy instant noodles. But when your income increases, you stop buying the instant noodles and shift to a better food. So this is one example where the opposite happens. So in this case, we need to care about the magnitude and the sign as well. So it can be plus or minus. So in case of income elasticity of demand, which is also known as YED, this is less intuitive, the short form, but the Y just stands for income. So if this elasticity is less than 0 or it's negative, we call it an inferior good. An example of this would be instant noodles, like I talked about. So instant noodles is an inferior goods. And if it's greater than 0 or positive, we call it a normal good. So an example of a normal good would be restaurants. The more money you make, the more you go out to restaurants. Or you can say fine dine restaurants, because there might be some low quality restaurants that might fall into the inferior category as well. Well, for income elasticity, we also have this part over here. So if the elasticity is between 0 to 1, it's a necessity. Whereas if it's greater than 1, it's usually a luxury good. This is the same as the price elasticity over here. So if it's less than 1, it's a necessity. If it's more than 1, it's a luxury good. But here it's instead of it being elastic or inelastic, we call everything that has an elasticity of greater than 0 or positive to be a normal good, and everything that has a negative elasticity of demand or income elasticity, we call it an inferior good. However, for this portion, so the positive portion, we can divide it into two branches. One is the necessities and the other is luxury goods. Now, The last one we'll learn is the cross price elasticity of demand. It's the least intuitive out of everything so far. The short form for this is XED. The X is just a cross. So for the other three elasticities, it was the elasticity related to one good only. So for the price elasticity of demand, it would be the price the change in quantity demanded of sunglass divided by the change in price in sunglass, or the change in quantity demanded of meds divided by the change in price of meds. However, for cross elasticity of demand or cross price elasticity of demand, you can call it by both names, it studies the percentage change in quantity demanded of one good divided by the percentage change in price of another good. So its formula is given by percentage change of quantity demanded of good A divided by the percentage change in price of good B. So why would this ratio be useful to study? This is because it can tell us if goods are substitutes or complements of each other. So an example of complementary good would be car and petrol. So if the price of petrol increases, the quantity demanded of cars will decrease because owning a car will become more expensive. So for cars and petrol, so if good B is petrol and good A is cars, if the price of the petrol increases, the quantity demanded of cars will decrease. So this will be a negative value because the numerator is negative, the denominator is positive. So if one increases, the other decreases. This ratio is negative. So when it's negative, they are complementary goods. Petrol and cars are complements to each other. On the other hand, we'll have substitutes as well. So an example of substitutes would be Pepsi and Coca-Cola. So if the price of Pepsi goes up, people will shift to Coke. They'll buy less Pepsi and buy more Coke. So in a case like this, if the price of Pepsi increases, the quantity demanded of Coke will increase because less people are buying Pepsi, and people who used to buy Pepsi will shift to buying Coke, which will cause the quantity demanded of Coke to increase. So if this elasticity is greater than 0, we call them substitutes. So Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And if it's less than 0, they are complements or complementary goods. So example of this would be cars and petrol. We can summarize the information into this table. So we have the price elasticity of demand, which is the percentage change in quantity demanded. So this is the change. This triangle is the symbol of change. So the change in percentage of quantity demanded, the change in percentage of price. This is the price elasticity of demand and the formula for that. we know price elasticity, we just want the magnitude of that, so it cannot be negative. And if it's 0 to 1, it's inelastic, and if it's more than 1, it's elastic. Now for the income elasticity, it's the percentage change in quantity demanded by the percentage change in income. If it's negative, it's an inferior good. If it's between 0 to 1, it's a normal good, that's a necessity. And if it's more than 1, it's a normal good, that's a surplus or a luxury. Surplus or luxury. It just means that it's something that you can live without. It's a surplus to your requirements. The cross price elasticity is the change in quantity demanded of product A divided by the change in price of the percentage change in price of product B. And if it's negative, products A and B are complements to each other. If it's more than that, products A and B are just substitutes to each other. And finally, for the price elasticity of supply, we have the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. We don't care about its sign, we just care about the magnitude, so it cannot be negative, it's not applicable over here. And if it's between 0 to 1, we call it inelastic, and if it's more than 1, it's elastic. And that's it for elasticity.